Welcome back, and we're joined once again by former Virginia Senator and Governor George Allen. Allen is now the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, seeking the same Senate seat he held from 2000 to 2006. Governor, Senator, thanks for being with us here today. Again, 43 straight months of 8% or higher unemployment in this country. What do you make of that, and what's the answer to that?
Well, it's a failure, and it's very discouraging to people. In addition to that, it's underemployment of nearly 20%. So many young people are graduating from college and moving back home. Our daughter, oldest daughter, had that experience. I did many of her friends. She's lucky she now has a job. There's a lot of folks that are young as well as middle-aged folks who may have a job, but it's not fully utilizing their talents and their skills and their education. So what we need to do is reinvigorate the entrepreneurial spirit of our country. This is something that I know can be done. We did it while I was governor. The Democrats were in control of the legislature. We worked together. We reduced taxes in Virginia by $600 billion, including removing the tax on Social Security, the discriminatory tax on federal and military retirees. We reduced taxes on small businesses. We made regulations more friendly. We enforced our right to work laws. We put in high academic standards in our schools and improved academic quality. And we were safer communities with the abolition of parole. All of this working together with Democrats. And the result, Mike, was over 300,000 net new jobs created in that 4-year period. That's what's needed in Washington, the right tax, the right regulatory, the right energy policies, and a skilled, capable workforce. Those are the essentials for success in our country. One thing that would really help our economy in Virginia, and that is energy. And Susan and I campaign all over Virginia, and folks from the coal fields to here on our coast are ready, willing, and able to provide America with the energy to power our economy. Right now, Tim Kaine, for example, is for this cap-and-trade energy tax scheme and these latest regulations from EPA that are going to outlaw coal. Well, coal means jobs in the coal fields. It means jobs for our railroads. It means jobs at the railroad car manufacturers in Roanoke. It means jobs here in our ports in Hampton Roads. We have the largest coal ports in America, and all of us use electricity. So EPA needs to be stopped from outlawing coal. Secondly, off our coast here, if I'm hired on to represent the people of Virginia in the United States Senate on day one after being sworn in, I'm introducing a bill to allow us in Virginia to produce oil and natural gas off our coast and then use the royalties, which would be hundreds of millions of dollars, for roads and transportation here in Virginia. That's how energy policy can help create jobs. We can have more affordable fuel and food and electricity. We'd be less vulnerable to hostile outside dictators. The federal government, if you use all our energies, including all the way to the barren north slope of Alaska, the federal government could get over $1 trillion in revenues without raising taxes, and best of all would be keeping our money here in the United States of America. So to me, energy is the way that you really can create more jobs and a better quality of life for Americans, and that's where I aim to provide strong and principled leadership for Virginians and Americans.
Governor, it seems to me that the great unbridgeable gulf in American politics today is those on the one side who say we need to raise taxes, those on the other side who call for nothing but budget cuts. Tim Kaine, as you know, is calling for rolling back the Bush-era tax cuts for those persons who make over $500,000 a year as a means of helping with the whole sequestration problem. Knowing you as I've known you all these years, I'm guessing you don't support that idea at all.
Well, raising taxes doesn't create jobs. Raising taxes actually harms the creation of jobs, unless there are a few jobs at the IRS. Here's what needs to be done with our tax policies, I think, in our country, is they ought to be made more simple, more fair, and more competitive. And I think individuals ought to have a freedom to choose flat tax. They can have a simple tax or stick with the current tax law because they may like the deductions that are in there, for example, mortgage interest deductions. Moreover, for job-creating businesses, the federal government imposes the worst in the world tax at 35%. The international average is 25%. In my Blueprint for America's Comeback, it's a pro-jobs growth plan of action, I promote 20% because I think America should be better than average. That alone, from independent studies, would create over 500,000 new jobs a year. That's 5 million jobs over a 10-year period. So I think there ought to be closing of loopholes. I think the tax code, and that means some will pay higher taxes. There are some companies like John Deere, they pay 33% taxes. Other companies that pay 0. Now, if you make it go up to 20, obviously those that are paying 0 will pay higher. And the other thing is I think there's a basis for a consensus on this. There are some Democrats and Republicans who are advocating higher or lower than 20%. I'm not set on exactly 20%, and I think we can really work together, get around a table, hammer out a deal, and say, here's how we have a more simple, fair, and more competitive tax code. Because, yeah, there needs to be focus. There needs to be efficiencies in Washington. There's no government program that runs at 100% efficiency. There needs to be accountability. There should be a balanced budget requirement, line item veto authority. But the other part is not just cuts. The other part is growth. And if you have an economic growth, you get more revenues. And that's the way it worked when I was governor. We cut taxes. Our priorities were education and law enforcement. And the way you paid for it was a vibrant economy where more people working and businesses prospering.
So if I were to throw out the devil's advocate question as a follow-up, so why shouldn't rich guys just pay more?
Well, the people who are wealthier do pay more. And actually, if you do make the tax code more simple, it is going to be a more, those who are getting all the deductions and so forth would be paying higher taxes. So I'm not opposed to progressivity in the tax code. I just would like to see a tax code that fosters job growth. And particularly for small businesses. 2/3 of the jobs created, Mike, we talk about big businesses, 2/3 of the jobs are created by small businesses. Most of the small businesses are pass-through corporations. They're subchapter S. They may be a corporation, but they're taxed. The owners are taxed at the individual level. So when people talk about raising taxes, a lot of those taxes are hitting small businesses who are really struggling right now, worried about, for example, this health care tax law. None of them want to get over 50 employees, the burden beyond seniors and others who are concerned about this Obamacare law, which Tim Kaine has said would be great for Democrats. Well, I don't think it's great for Democrats, Republicans, or independents, or seniors, or veterans, or health care providers, or orthodontists, or many other folks. But the point is that small businesses need the certainty to invest, to take a risk, and start hiring again, and raising taxes on them is only going to make it more difficult for them to stay in business, much less hire more people.
Do you support these folks in Congress, some of whom have lately been talking about messing around with the mortgage interest deduction that so many of us middle-class folks enjoy?
So long as we have a tax code similar to this, which I think we will, the mortgage interest deduction needs to stay, because think of it this way. A lot of people count that mortgage interest deduction in being able to afford buying a home. And I think it'd be very unfair to change the tax code on individuals like that. This is one of the reasons the realtors have endorsed me in Virginia, and that's great, because there's 30,000 realtors, and they know the value of the home mortgage interest deduction for homeowners and their ability to finance a home, and how lenders will look at the ability of somebody to be able to pay for a loan. And so I don't think that should be changed at all. It also matters for veterans. A lot of veterans, they say, oh, second homes. A lot of the veterans have second homes. That means a lot for river communities, beach communities, resort areas like here in the Hampton Roads area. And my view is, again, if you like people like the current tax code, the charitable contributions, the home mortgage deduction, you stick with it. But if you'd like a more simple one, people can make that choice and stick with it for, say, 5 years. Let the taxpayers decide what kind of tax code they want to have to comply with.
Speaking of veterans, as you know, there's a great